Everybody, and welcome along to LiRmedia.tv and the special edition of LiR Confidential, where we're just having a discussion on the latest. There's very little news coming out today on how the vote is progressing. I think it's
Yes.
down to 4 or 5 states, and it's still neck and neck as we're sitting here at 6 o'clock our time and probably lunchtime in some places in the United States. Welcome to Alice Butler-Short from Virginia.
Thank you.
Welcome to
Alice.
Chris Price. How are you?
Yeah, even Pat, I'm going good.
Welcome to John Prendergast. You doing all right, John?
Yes, indeed. I'm sitting here in the beautiful surroundings of the Long Court Hotel, Newcastle West, County Limerick, Ireland.
Excellent. I hope you're having a suitable steak. Well done. Good evening, Mary, and welcome along to this edition.
Hi, everyone.
Now,
Nice.
we were just, but Alice, there's no really up-to-date news as regarding the voting. Are they still counting votes in those 4 or 5 states that are left?
Yes, they are. And well, as you know, they stopped voting. It looks now like they called Nevada, or at least, well, they haven't called it, but it looks like they're showing Biden as ahead. This situation that we're dealing with here is a lot worse than what we had with Al Gore and the hanging chads, remember?
Yeah.
Because what we're really fighting for here is the integrity of our voting system. It has never happened before that the count was stopped, actually stopped when Trump was ahead. So there's a whole lot at stake here. But what
that was in Pennsylvania, was this?
No, everywhere.
All right. Oh, they
Yeah.
stopped counting altogether.
Yes, they did. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And they and when Trump was ahead, you know that when Trump was ahead, they didn't call any of the states for him. They just stopped counting. So it's a very challenging time for us, and we just have to. When I look away, I'm looking over at the TV.
I know that.
Where we just have to be calm and patient and let it all ride out. President Trump hasn't played any trump card yet, but that could happen.
Right. Now, in Nevada, just for our listeners and viewers, in Nevada, the last figures we had here, I looked at before we came on air, was that there was just roughly 8,000 votes between Biden and Trump in Nevada. So that's a very tiny margin. Yeah.
They have the Trump campaign have filed a lawsuit in Nevada.
Have they? So
Yes.
is the voting discontinued there as well?
No. Oh no. Of course the voting is supposed to.
The counting. Sorry.
The counting.
I beg your pardon. The count.
It looks the last time. I'll have to confirm that as things pop up here on the TV. But it seemed to me that it had stopped. Let's see. But anyway, they have filed a lawsuit, and I think they've filed in Wisconsin too.
Now, Chris, of course, we're well used to elections here, Chris, ourselves. I'm a bit of a nerd. I'd be at the count and looking over and watching the votes, but it's slightly. Have you been following the voting in America in the U.S. election, Chris?
Absolutely, yeah.
And what do you think of it so far as an overview of, well, there are differences, obviously, isn't there? Difference in voting between states, how they conduct them.
The thing is that you have, what you've got on here is basically 50 general elections run by 50 states, each having their own 50 election policies. And that is the biggest problem of the vote.
Yeah.
That the federal government, I'm choosing my words very carefully here today now, okay? The federal government does not really play a part in the voting. It's down to the state. And in my little bit of research over the last couple of days, it's the Secretary of State. Now, we're used to having the Secretary of State, who in America is Mike Pompeo, and the Irish equivalent to the Secretary of State would be our Foreign Affairs Minister, Simon Coveney. Okay, so the Secretary of State federally administrates the foreign policy of the United States. However, the state secretary of state is basically the election
The
manager,
returning officer
the
in our
returning officer, the returning officer for each
Yeah.
state. That's what it seems to be, and it's not what. So when people see that the Nevada Secretary of State or the Pennsylvania Secretary of State, it's a completely different job to what we think it is, going
right.
by what the federal is.
Yeah.
Okay, so
The Secretary of State has to certify the
yeah.
vote.
So basically, the situation you have here is that you have 50 separate general elections, with each state having their own rules and regulations.
Yeah.
And that is what confuses people.
Well, it doesn't really confuse people, Chris. What is happening?
Doesn't confuse me either, but it confuses others.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I don't mean to, contradict you. I'm just giving an analogy. For instance, through all of this COVID thing, it was the state governors who regulated, what should we shut down, what shouldn't, masks, no masks, or whatever.
Yeah.
And people were saying, well, why can't the president do something? He can't, because that's the way our country, that's the way our country runs. And it's the same thing with the voting. And what we find, and what we found during COVID was, it was the Democrat-run states, the ones with the Democrat governors, where we had the rioting, the pillaging, all of the worst situations, and where the close downs are kind of hard and fast, even to this day. And again, what we have in the general election is that we as Republicans find things highly suspect in the states where they are run. The states are run by a Democrat governor, Democrat, of course, Secretary of State, and this is not just a feeling. This is with a lot of evidence. And
well, politics is a tough business, John. When you were looking at the election as an overview, John, today now, moving away from, they're still counting votes, obviously. What is your sense of it here? Because it's difficult to get a handle on it here, obviously, if you're not on the ground, but we know that. But from all the news that's coming out, how do you assess it yourself?
Well, you see, the thing is that, could I just ask Alice one question? Good evening, Alice, or good afternoon. Alice, am I correct in picking this up, that the Senate and the House of Representatives could be in Republican control? Or will be? Great. Well, because
at least an increased presence in the Congress, and we will have the majority in the Senate.
Yeah, as before,
As before. Because Pat and Alice and Chris, the one thing though is that I'm very heartened to hear that there are women that have been elected to the House of Representatives that actually are standing on the abortion issue and pro-life. And I think over in this country, there has been a tumultuous welcome for that. And I'm delighted to hear that at least we have more women. So, Alice, looking at the way that it could happen, if President Donald Trump is re-elected, things will be sort of the same. If he's not re-elected and Mr. Biden is, it will be very difficult for the Democrats to actually pass or run through anything in Congress and the Senate.
Yes,
because the Republicans hold the power. Am I right on that?
Yes, you're right in that. But let me make one observation that most people may not have thought of before I move on. Say the Republicans get the majority in the Congress and in the Senate. That tells you one thing, that those people did not go in there and vote just for the senator and the congressman. They also voted for the president. And actually, they probably first voted for the president and then down the line for the Republicans. So that to me personally is an indication there's something wrong here. Those people did not vote one way for the Senate and the Congress and another way for the president. So
Mary, going to you there, at this remove now from the election night, based on, and I know you look across at all media platforms like ourselves here, you know, because you can't rely on any one, anyway, as we know here in this country as well, even though we're a small country. So, what is your sense of it now yourself, the way it's going?
Well, I'm just confused about why, you see, as somebody who comes from Ireland and we're used to, as you said, Pat, and you've tallied votes and you've been at election polling booths and that, and everybody more or less can go in, and if they have the invitation, say, to go in, but certainly the people who are going for elections have the right to go in and stand beside them. They're as close to the results as the person who's counting them, so they can observe everything within inches of all the ballots as they're coming out. It's completely, I mean, we say an awful lot of things about Ireland, but I have to say our elections are really transparent as far as I can see. You can't argue over them. Now, I can't understand why it's such a big deal, or it seems to be such a big deal for people to be able to go in and observe the votes being counted, to check the way we check. I think it's a civil, it should be, if it's not.
Well, it is, Mary, but we're talking about, again, just as Chris said, we're talking about different states. Yeah. And that's where you have the problem. Like in Pennsylvania, they were allowing them to stand 25 feet away where they couldn't see anything. So they had to go to court. And now they have got permission to go in and stand.
But it's 6 feet.
Now, I want to make a point here. 6 feet away. We kept saying they're going to keep this COVID thing up till after the election. So right here, you can see exactly why. Okay, 6 feet away, we would normally be able to stand right behind. We've done
it. Oh yeah, as you can actually see the voting papers themselves.
Yeah. But I did a little. I put together a few points before I came on, so I could go through those now if you would like me to.
Off you go.
Okay, so number one, in Fairfax, Virginia, where I live, they switched 100,000 votes from Trump to Biden, and they say it's a clerical error. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Number two, Wisconsin suddenly discovers 112,000 Biden ballots between 3:30 a.m. and 4:30 a.m. Right? Wisconsin magically now has more votes than registered voters. Nevada has.
That's right. I was reading that. Yeah.
Nevada has decided they won't have all vote counts in until Thursday. Michigan has gained 138,339 ballots for Biden as of Wednesday, since they stopped counting Tuesday night, a whopping 0 for Trump. In 6 states, Trump has sizable leads. All 6 states decided to stop counting ballots on election night. It's unheard of. And they all have blue, that's Democrat strong, holes. Twitter deletes the current sitting president's tweet on election night. And, even in the past 24 hours, blocked, I think, 4 out of 6 tweets. Then somebody running for a Senate seat.
Where's the sources for this information apart from a telephone?
This is all.
Yeah, it's being reported now in the media.
It has been reported.
Because I saw the one about the Michigan one, and also I saw that in Michigan, just a funny thing came on the BBC News. A 178-year-old man voted in Michigan.
Yeah. So North Carolina has 100% of precincts counted with Trump in the clear lead, and it's not being called. Richmond voters, these are my own people, were handed correct ballots. Many, I'm getting emails all morning. People have gone on to check it, and their vote hasn't been counted. Dead people are voting in Michigan. And this was June Aiken, born 1900, and William Bradley, born in 1902. They died in 1984.
Doesn't this actually, would this not frighten the ordinary American people that the Democrats are as corrupt and as fraudulent? If all of this is proven, that they could not be
But
trusted.
but John, we can't say that they're corrupt until it's proven to be so. We have to, I suppose, we have to wait until we find out for definite if there was any level of corruption behind it, or whether it was all typographical errors or whatever.
Yeah,
it could easily be people tired, and we're just going to give the benefit of the doubt for the sake of being unbiased.
Mary, you're trying to be unbiased, but I'm not giving you somebody's opinion or something that just came from one person. These are facts that are known. And for instance, and I know Chris is chomping at the bit to get in here. So
not entirely.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So there have been videos of poll workers dumping and burning Trump ballots. And nearly 400,000 votes for Biden were found in the 82nd and 83rd counties to be counted in Michigan last night. None for POTUS. Trump was ahead by 200K in 81 to 83rd counties.
Yeah, I was reading that, yeah.
170K behind. Now, here's the one. Biden admitted we have the most, remember this, before the election, we have the most inclusive and extensive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics. He said it. Take him at his word. Okay.
John, okay, thanks, Alice. John, you were saying there, sorry, if some of this is true, we don't know yet, but if it is anecdotal evidence coming out so far, and some news organs other than the usual heads have taken it and have been reporting on it. What do you think, John?
I'll tell you, we had the debacle with Hillary Clinton and about all of these emails, etc. And, Nancy Pelosi had the cheek to actually bring impeachment proceedings against the sitting president. I think now the Democrats should look within themselves. And I can assure you that even if it's only 1/3 factual that comes out of all of these reports, the actual election should be null and void, and Mr. Trump should be reinstalled next January 2021 as the current and new president.
Well, can I just say that all I think is that I want to see transparency.
Yeah,
and
that's what everyone wants to see.
There's nothing eats into me more than perceived injustice. And I'm more than happy to be the devil's advocate and say that there might be because we are here in Ireland and we like to show both sides and for balance. I'm more than happy to say that the possibility is that many of them, certainly with the voting, the 100,000 ballots that ended up for Trump that were Biden's, were possibly tiredness, mistakes. I know that they use Sharpies, which has been a bit of a controversy as well, because when they use the Sharpie, the ink bleeds through, and it can confuse, and people who are checking, if they're confused about what a person means on their ballot, they can interpret it as meaning that they have voted for, or this is what they want. And I think the anomaly for me rose when Virginia or Pennsylvania voters were told that they could put their votes in without a signature that matched the polling card. That to me seems bizarre to an Irish person. Yes. The idea, because we go in, and I'm sure you know, Alice, we go in, we have our identification, we sign, they tick us off, and we go in, and our name is ticked off the register, but we all have to go in. We don't have absentee ballots. We don't have overseas ballots. So it's much easier. Everything is, you have to go to the polling station. I can't understand how you can accept somebody's vote when their signature doesn't match their card. That to me sounds
Mary, it's because we have been fighting for the longest time for a law that requires you to show citizenship and to show that you're right to vote. But we have not been successful in that, and we have the situation here that you don't have in Ireland of illegal immigrants, and this is where the Democrats pick up a lot of votes from people who are illegal.
Are you saying, Alice, that anybody that goes into a polling booth, say in Virginia where you are, don't need to show ID?
They could show an electronic copy of an electricity bill they had paid at a certain address. That is what came out officially.
Can I step in here for a second, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be straight here, okay? I mean, and I want, in case there's any suspicion of doubt here.
Yeah.
I don't care who wins this election.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
And I've said that to you, to Mary and Pat, on numerous occasions.
Yeah.
So I'm not, just because I'm wearing a blue jumper doesn't mean I'm a Biden fan. Okay. I want to make that quite clear. I think Biden is an horrendous candidate I think he's well past his pension age. Donald Trump isn't far behind, but that's another matter. And I think if they are the two best candidates, well, if Biden is the best candidate that the Democrat Party could elect, well, God help them in 4 years' time. The point I'm making about this, and you mentioned about, I mean, I am a bit of an election nerd. I have no problem admitting that, okay? And I have voted in every general election, referendum, local election for the last 30 years. And I can count on my left hand the amount of times that I have been asked for ID at my polling station. Right? So, and that's a fact. And anybody who says any different, well, then you must obviously live in an area where they are actually super officious. Because I can go to the school across the way from me and vote.
Yeah, because you're known, and
but
they're returning it. Yeah.
But no. Hang on a second.
Yeah,
Pat.
I know his point.
No, the point is this. The law states, and Alice lives in a country where they abide by the law, or where they adhere to abide by the law, and it doesn't make any difference if the person who is taking her name is living next door. They have to ask for ID. That's the way it goes. Am I right, Alice?
Absolutely right.
So there you are. So we have a laissez-faire attitude in this country.
Not where I live, Chris. You have to show your polling card.
Fine. I haven't. But your polling card, Mary, your polling
card is not ID.
Not an ID.
No,
your polling card is your polling card.
Yeah.
Hang on, but listen. I could bring, say, my dad's polling card because he's the same name. Does that mean that's identification? No.
Yeah, I know.
So
for about 3 years after my mother died, I was getting polling cards from my mother, and I had to tell them.
But listen. How I understand the concerns. Okay, the point I'm trying to make here quite clearly is this, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to have rules, and Pat knows this for a long time, then bloody well adhere to them. We don't adhere to them in this country. We don't like making laws in this country and rules because we don't like the idea of having to adhere to them and enforce them. That's a fact. That's a matter of fact, right? Now, I think the biggest problem Alice has in her country at the moment is this, that her country is crying out for two things, right? One, a federal electoral commission that oversees federal elections. And the second, and I mean this with the sincerity, maybe it's about time that the United States looked for observers from different countries to look at the way their votes are being run. Because if they have legitimate concerns, then they may have to go to the United Nations or whoever and say, we want 3 people from Ireland, 3 people from Germany, 6 people from Australia, and we please have a look and observe our elections to see if they run fairly. And if there's no point the Americans going to other places in the world if they're not able, if they're not going to accept people doing it themselves.
I mean, the Australians, I was listening to Sky Australia. I've been listening to every different angle of it, the British angle, nobody can understand the fact that you cannot go in and stand beside and watch the counting of the votes.
But you see,
No, but that you're not physically being allowed at the moment.
at this time, yes, but our laws say you can. And the other thing, Chris, I agree with most of what you say, but bringing the United Nations into it, hell no.
I'm making
Yeah,
I'm making the point.
I know.
The point I'm trying to make, Alice, is this, right? Is that if you are saying, and I'm not going to contradict what you're saying, because I'm not in the estate, so I don't have the evidence or the proof. That's the point. I'm a very evidence-based person, right? Show me the where's the beef, as you have that saying. The point I'm making is this: it doesn't make any difference whether it's coming from United Nations or whoever. The point I'm making is this: is that maybe it's time that the Americans called in the cavalry from different countries and said, right, we might need some people to look at how we run our elections. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't say that
you're 100% right, Chris, because this even goes back to when Bernie Sanders was going for elections.
Let me tell you why it's not right. Because there's too much corruption. There's too much corruption.
Well, let them observe it.
Different people would not go for it at all. In all of these situations, follow the money everywhere. Follow the money. Now, but the notes that I read to you are verifiable facts. There is one thing going on here, and I'm not putting it out as a verified fact.
Yeah.
And that is the question of the watermarks. And yes. And so we have to see how that turns out. They're saying that there were watermarks on the valid.
The ballots.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm not going to say that is.
I saw that as well, but I don't know how true it is.
That goes. But let me just interject on what Chris said. He doesn't care, who's elected. But we care who's elected. But what we are really after right now is the integrity of our voting system.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that. The point I'm making, Alice, is I don't have any kind of strategic input. I mean,
I know.
I don't have any emotional desire to see who wins. That's not. I mean, I like to see who wins. Otherwise, I wouldn't be up all night. But it won't bother me who wins. That's the point I'm trying to make.
No, I get it, and that's exactly what I'm saying. I agree with it, because I'm in the. I mean, there's just a little difference. I would like Trump to win, but at the bottom line, at the end of the day, we just want to see integrity.
And I think it may be a point, and I think the reason why the American government, the US government, and the states don't want to have observers coming in is because maybe they feel a bit embarrassed by that.
I don't know, John. What do you think of the situation, John? How do you see it all
panning out?
I'll have plenty of time to declare, anyway, because the swearing in isn't until January, so they have loads of time. There's
well, that's it to see that they'll be in the High Court and the Supreme Court in America, in the various parts of the states. I just have to come down on the side of Donald Trump for very factual economic reasons. One is that we had a term with Obama, which was an absolute horrendous situation. He was a useless president, in my books, and they all had this fanfare in America about a new black American president. Great, hallelujah, whatever you want to say. But I looked upon Donald Trump as running America as a business.
Yeah.
He hired, he fired. I have cousins all over America, north, south, east, and west. Yeah. They have all said one thing. Since Donald Trump came to power, the living standards and the ordinary wages for the hard-working American men and women, black and white, whatever you want to call them, have risen. They can afford to go out, they can afford to spend, they have their groceries, they can have a family life, which everyone in any country is entitled to.
Yes.
It didn't happen under Obama, it didn't happen under Kennedy, Johnson, Reagan, any of them, none of them, Clinton, all of them. So as far as I can see, any of the Democratic elected presidents were useless. Now, you can
Well,
castigate me, you can say I'm right or I'm wrong. But Donald Trump has worked hard. And as Mary said on our last program last night, he is responsible for bringing a peace accord on
that's where I'm coming from, John.
Yes.
That is the one reason that, I mean, I would have, as I said before, I would always have considered myself Democrat. I would have, had I been in America, I would have certainly voted for Obama, purely because he was the first.
I know.
First black.
He was president. He was a great orator. That's all he did. But he did nothing for the American people.
I would have voted for him. I would have also, I didn't like Clinton at the time when he was going for the elections, but I absolutely really admired him afterwards for a time. As far as Trump was concerned, I hated him when he first came on the scene. I thought, oh my God, I was a Bernie Sanders supporter, never Hillary. And had it been Bernie Sanders, and I would have voted for Trump because I wouldn't have seen another choice. Having said that, I've seen the work the man has done to bring about peace in the Middle East, to bring four nations in so far, and with a possibility of 3 before the end of this year. And I've seen the efforts he has made. Now you can argue, you can say, why go and speak to the enemy like Kim Jong-un.
Well, and the Taliban, Mary.
But
and the
Taliban and ISIS. And if you have to, an enemy is only an enemy until you speak to them. And he took those steps. He took very dangerous steps and very brave steps to step across the South Korean border into North Korea and to shake hands with a dictator. And all 3 men deserve some kind of credit for making that
effort.
That step.
But Mary, if you look at Joe Biden, I'm sorry, you corrected me there last night as well on the other program. Joe Biden is 78, I think.
Yeah.
And the man is feeble. If you see him on the television, he's just a figurehead. He has no substance to run the most powerful economy in the world. Now, I know that there's a whole team behind him if he does become president, but if it's anything to do with the antics of Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and any of the other Democratic presidents, which were absolutely useless, we need a strong American economy, a very strong American president, because that influences the world economy and the livelihoods of people. And it's as simple as that.
Alice, I'll just interject there. And there was Chris is aware of this publication. There's a local newspaper here in County Clare where Chris and myself live called the Clare Echo. Chris, you know about it. And I thought they had a wonderful headline, which I hope you like. They said, local hotelier from West Clare is in running for a second term because Donald Trump, as you know, invested in Doonbeg, which is in West Clare, the Trump golf course and hotel. So it's a beautiful headline. Local hotelier and businessman is in running to be for re-election.
Never miss an opportunity.
You've got to give that sub-editor a pay rise.
My God, that was a fantastic headline.
Never miss an opportunity.
But getting back, Alice, before we wind up this one, what do you think yourself? I know there's one state that you can still send in your ballot by the 18th of November, your vote rather. They've extended it.
That is legal. I mean, we still have our constitution, which applies to the entire country.
Yes.
So again, we get back to the point that we are fighting for the integrity of our laws, and that's really the bottom line. I had something very. I lost my train of thought when you came in that time, but I had something that I can't remember now that I really.
While you're thinking of it, what I can't understand, and I don't know, do you agree with me, Chris? I can't understand how people are allowed. We have an election, and all the votes are in. The Gardaí take them. That's our police. They take them in boxes, sealed boxes, and they're put away safely until the count. There's no more voting after those boxes are sealed, and on the night of there's a final cutoff, and that's it. There is just, to me, I can't understand how any election, any state, any city in Ireland would allow people to vote for days afterwards, after the ballot after the election has the election.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll answer that question for you. Okay, right. The problem that you have here is this: is you're trying to compare apples with oranges. Ireland is such a small country, right? America is huge.
Yeah.
Okay. And the problem in America, from what I can see from afar, is there is this rush to have. Now, irrespective of whether I would agree about the vote, and it's a bit long-winded, but I'll try and make it as quick as I can.
All right, go ahead.
The problem about America is this: it's too big, right? That's why they don't have a federal commission to run their elections. They entrust the states. Okay,
They have to.
They have no other choice. They have no other choice. And if you take even, and I just, you know what, I finished work a half an hour early today, and I was just watching the news, and I just got the map out, and you look at some of these counties. I mean, Pennsylvania has like 70 or 80 counties, and they're huge. You may not see a neighbor from one part of the year to the next. There's so much vastness, especially out in the Midwest, right? You take a state like Nevada, right? Huge state, 6 votes. Why? Because nobody bloody lives there. That's why. So, and that's part of the problem. The second problem is that there is a rush to have these votes counted straight after.
Yeah.
I've said this for years about the American voting system.
Yeah.
They need to take a pause. I have a problem, and Alice may agree, she may not agree, but I've said this 20 years ago before these anomalies came up, right? As an election observer, I have a huge problem with results being declared on one side of the country while people are voting on the other side of the country.
That's it.
And that's obviously because of time zones. I think, my opinion is this, is that you have your election day on Tuesday.
Yes.
Voting is finished when Hawaii finish, and no votes should be counted.
That's what I think.
The following day, because then you can have your law enforcement to round up the ballots and put them in a safe place. Have one designated counting center. The problem in America is that if you've got 60 counties, you've got 60 different counting centers in that one state. Multiply that by probably 50, and you've got the potential for disaster.
You have, yeah.
So you do have that. The American networks have always wanted to have a winner on election night. And I think this is probably a good time for every single one in America to step back and say, right, it doesn't matter about the electoral college, it doesn't matter about winning the popular vote. How can the American government, whether it's state or federal, run their elections better to show transparency, where you can't have people going out at 6 o'clock in the evening on the Pacific coast while knowing that people in New York have had their votes declared?
That's exactly
That's my point.
Exactly
that's the biggest point. It's got nothing to do with mailing in and having absent ballots. It's about, I've said this before this has happened. It's all to do with having your day for elections and then pausing for 12 or 24 hours and start the counting the following day.
Yeah, because it's only human nature. If you see that your candidate, and if you're the last area to vote,
you're going to go home.
And you know because it's coming out in the news who has been given such a state or who's winning. I mean, and then there's a rush to try and vote to get your candidate in.
This is a very, very peculiar election because a lot of states are so tight. If you think about most elections that happened in the last 20, 30 years that I can remember, a lot of the states were cut and dried. So when the big networks wait till say 7 o'clock Eastern time and the first couple of states, they could nearly declare them straight away. as projections is, well, we're going to give Georgia to Clinton, we're going to give such and such a state to Pat Barry or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's because the networks want a winner on
So,
the night.
But what
that's
I
the
can't
problem.
understand as well, Chris, is that Donald Trump was ahead in Pennsylvania at the end of the count the night before last, and he was 85% of the count had been in at that stage. 85% of the votes had been counted. And he was ahead by almost 700,000 votes, and they didn't call it for him. Yet they called for Biden with 15%.
Sorry, Alice.
They have stopped counting until Friday, and the
have they?
Yeah, they have, and the Pennsylvania has gone back to appeal the permission that was given to the
Republicans
to be, 5 feet
Just
away.
on no, I listen on those let's get this quite clear. There's 29,000 votes in Allegheny County, which is basically Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Right? They're the ones that have been paused until tomorrow. They're still counting away in the rest of the state.
Oh, okay.
Right.
All right.
So
now,
let's get this clear. Let's get this clear.
Yeah, since we started the program, I've got quite a few messages from the States. With I sent it down to you, Mary. Our first sample of a voting paper. I've never seen one. Anyway, I didn't get time to read it. It's so complicated. Alice, when you go in to cast your vote, I'm just looking at this here now on the phone. I can't share it, but because I must verify it first. But anyway, it looks all right. When you go in to vote, what are you given when you go in to vote?
Well, when outside, what we do actually, outside the polling station, we have Republicans who give the Republican ballot, and Democrats give the Democrat ballot. But even if they don't, people pretty much know who they're going to vote for anyway. And then you go in. I was asked for my ID, and I gave it, and.
Yeah, but what is on that ballot? Hang on a second. What's on that ballot paper?
On that ballot paper, on the Republican ballot paper will have the Republicans who are running for office only, and on the Democrats, only the Democrats. And so people walking in, they usually say, "Would you like a Republican ballot?" And if they're a Democrat, they'll say no, and they'll go and take that one. And sometimes you can get people to.
That's completely bonkers, isn't it?
You mean to say that not everybody's name is on the ballot? That there's two ballots?
No, there isn't. Only the party candidates for the Democrats is on the ballot if you're a Democrat, and the party candidates for the Republican is on the ballot if you're a Republican, and never the twain shall meet. In Ireland, Alice, all the candidates running in that district are on the one ballot paper.
When you go inside, they will give you one that shows Democrats and Republicans.
All right.
It will identify both. But really what the purpose of having people outside the polling stations is kind of helps us to identify who's with us or who's against us. And sometimes maybe influence a decision on their way in.
But on many occasions, am I right in saying that you could go in as a Democrat but vote for a Republican?
It depends. In some states, you have to be registered as
one or the other.
One or the other, yes. And
of course, we had a libertarian candidate as well on the ballot.
Isn't that unfair? Isn't that taking the anonymity of the ballot box away? If say, for instance, I go in and I'm immediately identified as a Democrat or a Republican, aren't they going to know I'm going to vote for the Democrat candidate? Isn't that where they're getting their statistics?
Oh yeah, Chris, I see the point you're making, Chris. Yeah.
The point I'm making is that's why they know where the votes are coming from.
That's what I'm saying.
The local machines are standing outside and they're going, "There's Pat, there's Mary, there's Alice, there's whatever."
There's no way they can identify anyone going in.
Well, let me tell. Can I give you an example about what happens here? Right, I'll give you an example here. A good friend of mine was a county councillor here in Clare, right?
Yeah.
And they know they A
Yeah,
friend of
go on.
mine is a county councillor in Clare years ago, right? And they know down to the street, because the polling stations will have maybe 7, 8 or 10 blocks of houses, and
Yes.
they can tell. And I remember him saying to me when he wasn't re-elected. I says, well, what happened there? He says to me, well, you know what? I knew exactly who voted for me, and I knew exactly who didn't vote for me. And it was those people, and this is exactly what it says, it was those people that I helped over the last 5 years that didn't vote for me.
Well, before we wrap up, Alice, before we wrap up, so could I go into a polling booth, not to exaggerate this, could I go into a polling booth in Virginia, right? And could I vote for Donald Trump for president? And could I vote in for all the local Democratic candidates?
If you were a registered voter in Virginia, but if you're not registered,
Yeah, but I could do that, could I?
good, you could choose. Yeah, you could.
All
And
right.
this is what I say. It doesn't makes it at the beginning. Doesn't make any sense to me that we get a majority in the Senate and in the Congress, because I know that we call it what we were thinking. You know, was that some of the candidates who were running for those positions would kind of get in on the shirt tail of Trump, and it's not looking that way, and it doesn't make any sense. So, you know, here we are.
Yeah.
But again, like Chris said, in the United States, it's just totally different.
Well,
it's so big,
mhm.
and you know, I was at my polling station, which is small. 99 point something % of the people I wouldn't recognize, because we don't have communities like you have in Ireland. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
My neighbor has just moved in. You know, one across the street. I hardly know any of my neighbors.
Can I ask you, Alice? I hate to ask this now, but your celebration dinner for Trump, is that still going ahead?
Oh, that's going ahead, because any which way we celebrate the accomplishments of President Trump, and all of the wonderful things he did, and you know how the unemployment went down to almost zero through deregulation. And last night somebody was arguing with me that, oh, this all started with Obama. Well, maybe he did a little bit, but you know, without Trump, it wouldn't have escalated the way it did. Because
Alice, can I ask you one question, if you don't mind?
Yes.
I noticed when I was watching the election coverage on Tuesday, when they had reporters outside different stations or whatever,
Polling
stations, yeah. There seemed, for such a record turnout, I reckon there's going to be 150 million people that voted. Now, okay, I take over 100 million did early and whatever, but there seemed to be very few lines of people waiting to vote.
Depends on the time of day, and on November 3rd, the lines weren't that bad, because like people like me, I went 3 days beforehand.
Okay.
People were the lines.
Oh yes, yeah.
They were huge. I mean, some lines you waited 4 hours, 6 hours, and we have one pretty close to us, so we just drive down and see what it looked like. And we went one night about 6:45, 15 minutes before it closed, and we ended up just waiting about an hour.
And can I ask you a question? What's your voting time? What was the time that the polling station would normally open in your state on
6 a.m.
on 6 a.m. and what time does it close at?
7.
See, a lot of states have a lot of different polling times as well. Like New York can vote up to 9 o'clock at night, while some places finish at 6.
Which is why, back to what you said there earlier, Chris, there should be, if Hawaii is the last to vote.
But as we said, it's just two.
It should be the next night. Should be the finish.
You see, it would be very easy for us in Ireland to knock this, but as Chris and Alice and all of us have agreed, America is a huge country, and it's 50 countries in one country, if you want to be logical about it, and it's totally different. But anyway, before.
Our concern in Florida always was that, you know, the Panhandle, you know, was the last to vote, and you know, that if people in that area, you know, if it was called for a Democrat early, then the people in the panhandle might think, oh, well, we might as well not vote.
Different
So-
time zone.
Yeah, that has a big bearing, which I didn't think of before, you know. Chris, I think you made the point, someone voting over on the one side and the other side is being called before you ever get out of your bed. Anyway, I think we'll have to draw the curtain down on this edition of LiR Media, LiR Confidential on LiR Media. Alice Butler-Short, once again, tremendous. Thank you for your time again with us.
Tremendous.
It has been enlightening, to say the least. Thanks to John Prendergast. I think John got a phone call, but John will catch up with you later. We don't see you now. Thanks to Chris Price as well. Thank you, Chris.
Price out there in
Give a battle for integrity and freedom.
And thanks, Mary Horner, for participating. So for this edition of LiR Confidential, until we meet again, good evening and a good luck.
And good afternoon in Virginia.